Okay, just a little experiment here. What do y'all see in this picture? Anybody see anything?
I see an old lady.
An old lady? Who else sees an old lady? Raise your hand. Does anybody see anything different?
I do. I see like an animal's face.
Oh, that's a new one.
The ear, you know, really nice.
Huh.
Who's a young lady?
Okay, somebody sees the young lady? Who else sees a young lady?
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is sort of like what it was trying to piece together this story, because you have so many people's perspectives coming into play. Some people look at something and they see one thing, and somebody else looks at it and sees something else. And they're all telling the truth as they see it, right? I mean, we're telling the truth if we see the old lady, and we're telling the truth if we see the young lady. And maybe at some point, if we look hard enough, we'll see both. But what I had to do to figure this story out and figure out, kind of solve an 80-year-old mystery, is to assume that they were all telling the truth as they saw it, and try to piece together a story that didn't say this person's lying. Okay, they might have been mistaken on what they saw, but to try to take all of the pieces together and come up with a cohesive story where they could all be telling the truth as they saw it. Okay. So the big question is, was it premeditated or not? I was reading the review that the state of Georgia did on it, and it seems to matter, according to the law, if it was premeditated and George did not shoot. I mean, if it was not premeditated and he did not shoot, then he should not have been hanged. Okay? But if it was premeditated, whether he shot or not, he could be culpable for that, if they really went there to kill him. So the question really comes down to, did they come there to kill him or not? There's an unused witness that I found when I was researching, and I found it kind of late in the game, and I'd already written almost the whole story, and I pretty much had told it. They did it on purpose, they went up there, they both shot, everything. And then, I think, did you bring this over to me, Mom? Okay, my mom brought me this book that my grandfather had given her, I guess, in the 70s or something. But, you know, it was written in 1977 by Ernest Hollingsworth, and he's a local man. The old miner and his guardian angel. And I was really intrigued by it because it's the life of a coal miner, and so you see what it's like to be a coal miner, and it was great fodder for the book to know how they were living and everything, but it also spanned the time period of this murder. And I got excited that maybe he saw it. Why else would my grandfather give me the book, or give my mom the book? And but I got all the way through it, and he said he was living in Kentucky at the time of this murder. And I almost put the book down, but he's kind of an entertaining writer, so I thought, well, I want to hear his whole story, so I finished reading it. And I got down to the very end, and he didn't mention the murder all through here. I just saw him go past the time period. And when I got down to the end, he says, oh, and by the way, when I was home during a strike, I witnessed this murder. Okay. And the way Ernie Hollingsworth tells it is quite different than anybody else tells it. He was trying to find out whether the strike was off in Kentucky. So every day he would go pick up a magazine and he'd read to see if it was time to go home or not. And so he bought a magazine from a boy, and he was kind of perched there on the depot as the train comes up and the boys get off, and he sees the whole exchange. And he's trapped there between the train and the railing, and he can't move. So everybody else is running in all the different directions because they don't want to be in the middle of all this gunfire going on. But he's sort of trapped there. And he sees what happens, and he sees that George didn't have a gun, that he did not fire, and that Ralph did all the shooting. And he feels, I mean, he sort of interjects his own opinion in here, and that he thinks that that the conductor yelling so crazily about, they have a gun, arrest them, and all this, it made such a scene that it made Joe pull his gun out, and that Ralph thought that he was going to shoot his brother, so he shot him in defense of his brother, which still wouldn't be right to shoot a lawman, you just don't do that. But still, the fact that he's the one witness who says George never shot and was at close proximity, and he swears that the guys who said he did shoot, he knew where they were. They were all running off in the other direction because they didn't want to be in on it, and they actually came back later, and some of them who, testified that George shot were actually not there at the time. They'd gotten the information secondhand. So whether Ernie's telling the truth, I don't know, but he says they did not use his testimony because he was a Mason. And I didn't realize anything much about that till I was telling this over at the Walker County Historical Society meeting, and Dr. Boyles said that he brought out that fact about how the mountain people did not trust the valley people because they were Masons and slaveholders and Southern supporters. So there was this distrust of anything a Mason would say, and that's what Ernie says they didn't believe his testimony. Well, the defense didn't use it because they didn't think it could be trusted, and of course the prosecution didn't want to use his testimony. So there you go. The next thing that happens is that there's a kind of a media blitz that happens here, and which I find kind of interesting that even in the 1920s the media could sway things. You'd think it wouldn't be as prevalent as it is today, but some people got together who felt that the boys were too young to be hanged for the murder, and so they started a national buzz around this. And I actually found an old New York Times article, which I use in the book. They quote from it. That's just kind of preposterous in the way it tells the murder. It's like all the facts are twisted and wrong. But at the end of it, it has this open plea to the governor of Georgia by all the boys' organizations across the United States to stay the execution of these boys. So this media influence comes into play with the trial as well. And again, you got the 3 lawmen that are shot in the 18-month period. So the governor has to balance this plea from those boys' organizations and the media against a need for justice to stop what's happening in Walker County, this disrespect for the law. So in the end, one brother hangs and one brother goes free. Or well, not free, he goes to jail. So did they hang the right brother? Find out. I'm not going to tell you which one because I don't want to ruin the story.
Where did the hanging actually take place?
Walker County Jail. Oh, that's another thing I should bring up. He took 11 minutes to die because nobody had ever hanged a man.
Oh.
Sheriff Lamb had to get a book on it. Lamb Harmon had to get a book, and they had, if you don't get the height right, then you can either snap the head off or they can, not die immediately, and that's what happened. The next year, the official form of capital punishment in Georgia changed to electrocution, and it probably had something to do with this case since it was such really a horrifying thing. I mean, they say that the sheriff and the deputy sheriffs, they just never got over it.
Did the older brother stay in jail? How long was he?
He died in jail. One account says from tuberculosis, and the other says he was hit by a car while he was on a chain gang.
Okay, was it the younger one that was hanged or the older one?
Read the book.
They say the young one was too young to be hanged.